Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and give folks just another 30 seconds to go ahead and get squared away here, and then we'll jump into things. All right, we've got a little over a minute past, so we'll go ahead and get started from here. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Hireology's Healthcare Beat. Today's the second day of our webinar series. I'm Chris Mercer. I'm the Director of Healthcare Market Growth here at Hireology. Also going to be your MC and your moderator for today's session. Yesterday, we heard from Adam Robinson discussing the applicant experience from a survey that Hireology conducted with recent and former healthcare job applicants. Some of the key takeaways, from that session were really understanding the key motivators that initiate job search for job seekers, as well as implementing a channel optimization strategy for reaching job seekers. And lastly, meeting job seekers where they are, by using a mobile first or a mobile-led recruitment strategy. After Adam's keynote presentation, we heard from our wonderful partners at SkillCheck, Skill Survey, and Clickboarding. They addressed the importance of implementing technology and digital tools throughout the recruitment process to mitigate some of the risks associated with making a poor fit hire. These pre-employment assessments help to drive a lot of engagement with candidates throughout the hiring process. And things like reference checks also help to address some of the dropout rates, as well as some of the employee retention down the road. So some of the themes that permeated throughout that session yesterday were meeting candidates, where they are, once again, with that mobile-led or mobile-first strategy, putting yourself in the shoes of your candidates, by making their experience enjoyable and simple to follow, and then utilizing technology to make you more efficient. So, for those of you that were with us yesterday, we hope you really enjoyed the content. However, if you were unable to make it, we do have a recording of that session that we can provide you with later. The same goes for today. The session is being recorded, and we will be sharing it out with all of the folks that are on here today. But for today, we'll be kicking things off with a session from Aaron Dunn, who is the SVP of Marketing at CareAcademy. Aaron is going to be taking a deep dive into how to market your open roles to non-traditional candidates. So then we'll take a quick break before jumping into our CEO fireside chat. And with that, I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Aaron Dunn. Aaron brings nearly 20 years of experience running marketing programs and developing a go-to-market strategy for high-growth venture-funded companies and publicly traded global organizations. Aaron focuses on connecting marketing performance to sales achievement through transformational go-to-market strategies that create efficient scale. Under his leadership, his teams have created rapid growth, won numerous awards for go-to-market excellence, and created new market categories. Previously, Aaron served as the VP of Product Marketing for Datto, pre-IPO Vista equity-backed software unicorn, where he led the launch of numerous new products to a global network reaching over 1 million small businesses. Previously, he was the SVP of Marketing for SnapApp, through its Series B investment, and the Chief Marketing Officer for Intronis, where he led a repositioning and repackaging of the company's product line, driving accelerated growth and ultimately leading that company to a successful acquisition by Barracuda Networks. Aaron is a frequent industry speaker and advisor to a number of technology companies, including Joviac.ai, helping the company launch its innovative recruitment optimization platform. Aaron holds a bachelor's degree from Hamilton College and earned his MBA with honors from Boston University. So without further ado, Aaron, I will go ahead and let you take it from here.
Okay, wow, that was quite an intro. Thanks, Chris. I guess there's a lot to say there. I've been around a long time, so that's what that means. But it's a real pleasure to be here today, and thanks so much for having me. It was great to hear about day one. I knew there was a lot of attendees. It was really engaging. So of course, there's no pressure on day two. So we'll do our best. And it was interesting to hear the key motivations that you were talking about there, Chris. I think the idea of understanding where your candidates are coming from is really critical, and is actually a great jumping off point, for this talk today. Because this is where we're at, folks. It's been quite a year. There are some good news, good signs on the horizon. We're obviously all watching the progress of the vaccine quite closely, but by any stretch, we're not out of the woods yet. We have more difficult days ahead, unfortunately. And the same is true on the joblessness front. This spike, as we all lived back in March, April, May, was incredibly dramatic. And the claim numbers are still a little bit up over pre-COVID times, but also those who are out of work are not all of them are back to work, which is creating a hardship for the broader community. And there's a lot of work left to be done to sort of re-achieve those where we were before. In this moment of crisis, if you will, not all industries were impacted equally. So Gallup did a poll right about June to understand, in the heart of the crisis, where was joblessness, what industries were impacted the most. And not surprisingly, 1 out of 3 service-oriented workers, which would include the food industry, restaurants, things like that, were pretty dramatically impacted, particularly when you take into account the reduction in pay as well. I think we all are faced with our favorite restaurants, trying to help them stay in business, and also seeing some of our favorite restaurants, unfortunately, not going to return. Same thing in the entertainment sector. 1 in 4 entertainment workers, which is going to include bars, music venues, theaters, sporting venues, et cetera, were pretty dramatically impacted, as well a number of other areas. A little bit further down the list, but still pretty heavily hit, is in the clerical space. 1 in 10 of clerical-oriented staff were also let go. So as hard as this year has been, this actually does create opportunities, and that's really what we're here to talk to you about today, because I know that all of you on this call are hiring. At least I presume that all of you on this call are hiring. And I suppose, as a side note, I would normally ask for a show of hands if I could. I'd ask, how many of you are hiring right now? And most of you probably would raise your hands, although it is right after lunch, so I don't know, maybe not. But the thing that we're faced with here is a massive spike in joblessness, who are good candidates, and we have good jobs. So how do we make a match? How do we bring together this cohort of people who are looking for work actively, and then the jobs that we have available? So let's dig into that. Let's discuss this concept of the caregiver shortage that we face, as well as the impact of COVID-19. So as we look back at the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, which created this thing we now call the gig economy, names like Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, Fiverr, TaskRabbit, others all came to fore into this market. In that time, there was quite a few folks who were, again, left jobless, but really in a wide array of industries. I'm going to argue that the great pandemic, as we will soon call it, of 2021, is really reshaping everything about how we work. It's upended all the rules: where you work, where you live, what kind of jobs you do, among many, many other things. I mean, things you never thought would be possible are now commonplace. I mean, who would have thought that your local TV anchor, news anchor, or weather anchor, or Jimmy Fallon even would be able to work from home? And yet here we are. It's inconceivable, but in a hot minute, everything changed, and we were forced to adapt. And that adaptation is ongoing, and we will see how this evolves in the economy over the next generation, really, as we're seeing today with the gig economy. At the same time, home care is having a moment. Where we are right now, in addition to everything else, all the other changes, how we age is also getting upended. Unfortunately, this crisis has impacted assisted living facilities, elder care facilities in a much greater extent, and that's one of the great tragedies that we're faced right here, right now. It is up to us to make this an opportunity, and to take this crisis moment that we're in and transform it into an opportunity for us to move forward. We have to take this time to really transform how we care and who performs that care, because the numbers we're facing are daunting. The need for direct care workers is only growing exponentially. So there's a number of different stats out there. We pulled this one forward. Recent estimates are suggesting that we might need as many as 3 times as many direct care workers in the coming decade. That is a massive gap. That is an all hands on deck kind of gap. And this survey was done before COVID. I would imagine that this number is going to be dramatically in orders of magnitude larger. People need to find this profession. They need to fall in love with this profession, and they need to stay in this profession. And the good news is, we think we can help with that. And I mentioned just a second ago, hiring them is not enough. You have to keep them too. You spend all this effort to get time and effort, money, et cetera, to get them in, get new candidates into your roles, working for you, only to see them to leave in the first 90 days. The stats here are pretty consistent. Again, live, I might ask for a show of hands about how people are feeling about their ability to retain. But we've talked to enough people, enough of our customers are faced with this challenge. You spend all this time and money and effort to get them in the first place. You can't afford to waste that time, effort, and money. This cycle has got to close in. We've got to figure out collectively how to change this curve. So we talk about a two-pronged strategy for growth. We've got to focus on both sides of the equation. How do we open up the aperture to find new non-traditional candidates from other industries, not just from the traditional pathways to finding a caregiving profession? And once we apply innovation to find them, we need to apply more innovation to figure out how we can keep them. And this is really, honestly, no simple challenge, which is something that we've been working on really in our entirety of our existence. And we know that folks in our partner community like Hireology are also very focused in on this as well. And they're bringing a lot of innovations together. But out of this effort and out of this crisis was born what we've called the Future of Work campaign. So let's talk about that program, and let's talk about it in the context of the last few months. What was it like back in April? It feels like a long time ago, but actually feels in some ways like just yesterday. It's actually reflecting on how fast time feels like it's moving in retrospect. It looked an awful lot like this in April. And in fact, it probably looks a lot like this today. This is a lovely woman named Flora Ajayi from New York City. And this photo taken back in April. And it's pretty representative of the times then and still. In fact, the New York Times actually just did a piece on this the other day, following the life of a caregiver, and talking about how they changed and all that, and sanitized themselves and the different PPE that they were required to use. Again, it feels about like this. She's getting all geared up, getting ready to go see her client because she has to. Her client needs her to show up, particularly now. If you can stay in the home, you want to stay in the home. The idea of going to the hospital right now presents a whole host of issues that none of us really want to try to face. Back in April, then as now, scrambling around to get PPE, make sure your caregivers were safe, put protocols in place. And for many of you, this was all new, and that change was really accelerating rapidly. So in response, we mobilized. So the first thing we did was we put together a training program on COVID in the market. Well, actually, that's not true. The first thing we did is we sent all of our people home and made sure that they were safe. And then in parallel, we also started to build a free COVID-19 class for direct care workers. We put this together in about 4 days. It was all hands on deck. The whole business focused on getting this done. But we felt like we had to do it in order to help you. We felt like we wanted to help you ensure that your direct care workers were trained and ready to go, knowing full well that the uncertainties that were being presented on a daily basis. In the first 3 months after rolling out this free training program, we had 28,000 caregivers self-certify on this class. Another 8,000 to 10,000 since, which is really gratifying to see the uptake, but also speaks to the fact that it was meant to be useful, and in fact, it was useful for you and for your caregivers. From there, we turned our attention to all those displaced workers, that big hockey stick in jobs that we saw, joblessness that we saw. And we launched the Future of Work program, retraining program. We saw this massive worker displacement in both the service, hospitality, entertainment industries, as we saw in the Department of Labor and Gallup numbers. And we know that you have a dire need for caregivers. And we also, transparently have a training platform that's purpose-built to train and upskill people. So we pivoted our focus now towards retraining for new entrants into this profession. It was really a three-part effort. One was to use non-traditional means to recruit new people, recruit from a pool of people who had been displaced from their prior work. We offer them free training, basically two chunks of free training. One is a 4 hours of initial, hey, this is what it means to be a caregiver, and could help you sort of get started down and accelerate your journey into caregiving. And then also we had a matching process where we people who completed the training, we would match with an agency in their local area. We got off to a strong start in phase one, which we just wrapped up at the end of October. We had well over 2,700 participants enroll. 350 participants completed their training and matched with an agency. We had over 100 agency partners in the program, ready and willing and able to receive candidates. And we closed the program right at the end of October with our first ever Caregiver Con, which was like a full day live training environment where, virtual training environment where people could come complete their training and then get matched with an agency from there. It was great. We were very pleased with the success to date, but there's so much more to go. Like we've only really scratched the surface here on what the opportunity is. There are millions upon millions of people that we could potentially tap into, and partner with you to get them and bring them into the industry. So as I mentioned earlier, though, recruiting is not enough. So it's great. We brought all these people to the table. We're drawing people from industries that aren't necessarily traditional sources of candidates. The next step is we need to make sure they stay around. So you have to think about, it requires that you think about recruiting and retention in tandem all at once. People have certain expectations about what you're going to be able to do for them as they join the industry. And you need to understand that and make sure that as you're going through your recruiting process, you're sharing details about what those are. There's a number of levers that people will expect, things like benefits and insurance, showing folks a path to ongoing work and ongoing training, benefits, of course, flexible hours. Those are all really important levers that you can pull as you work to attract new people into your hiring funnel. And wages is another thing, right? So just a quick word on wages. I want to highlight this because the pandemic has really transformed the opportunity for work. Pay rates don't necessarily rise in our industry as they do in others. Like we have a very classic sort of supply-demand imbalance, and the first thing that usually happens is that rates increase. And obviously, we know that you're constrained in reimbursement schedules, your client's willingness to pay, et cetera. So there are some limitations. It's not purely a free hand of the market, as our friend Adam Smith might say. And so you have to get creative. We've talked with agencies who are doing things like offering sign-on bonuses, retention bonuses, ongoing rewards, hazard pay, et cetera, things that fall outside of the pure wage to help offset that and really provide folks with an opportunity to fulfill their salary requirements or their living wage requirements. Because your competition for these new workers is not just the agency down the street, but it's also Amazon. Amazon set $15 an hour minimum wage for any job, any place in the country. It doesn't really matter what you do. My daughter took a job at Whole Foods here in the Boston area. As a senior in high school, $15 an hour. She's actually now making $16 an hour, which is fantastic for her. So this is the new competitive playing field. As COVID has upset all of those rules, your competition for your hires has changed, and that unfortunately is going to require that you get really innovative and tell a slightly different story. But don't lose sight of what I would call is your ACE card, right? So countless surveys of caregivers indicate that they do this work to help people. They're not doing it for the money solely. Surely they need a living wage. They have to be able to earn a living, but they do it because they see the value, they see the opportunity, and they get meaning from helping people. It's incumbent upon us to really provide that opportunity for folks. We can empower them to do great work, and we must empower them to do this great work. And if you get this right, you'll be able to really fuel your growth for the future. So over the last several months of doing these various programs and having talks like these, we've learned a few things that we think you can apply in your own recruiting effort. We've been really gratified to see the success of our new career entrants from the Future of Work program. As I mentioned, several hundred people, through the program and then beginning their journey with agencies. We had as part of Caregiver Con, we had a young man named Austin who actually graduated from university, and he thought he was going to work at Marriott, and unfortunately the job had to be pulled back. It was eliminated, and so he took the moment to really remake himself. He turned himself into a direct care worker as part of the Future of Work program, and is currently working with the family. It is indeed possible. Like, with good training, with a good strategy and good structure, you can bring people, regardless of their prior career arcs, regardless of what they were doing before, and you can get them to be successful as direct care workers. Second, it's incredibly important to make sure that you communicate. One of our panelists at a recent event, Kevin Smith, who's the CEO of Best of Care, an agency here in Massachusetts, he said, you have to stay in very close, almost extreme contact with your prospects all the way through, and not just from the point of hire. You actually have to follow them really beyond the first 90 days to make sure that you're being clear and you're being consistent with your communication and what you're telling them. And don't assume anything. I think oftentimes, okay, I've gotten the person hired, I'm about ready to send them off to their first job. Communicate what to expect. What does parking look like? How do they get in the building of wherever that is that they're going? What will they find? What will they encounter? All those little things that you can do to communicate along the way really help make sure that people feel prepared for whatever comes next. And lastly, that ongoing training really helps people understand that this is an opportunity for them to continue to move forward and be part of this industry. No matter how you do it, you should do it. And I realize, actually, as we're going through here, that we may have skipped right past the prior slide. So I'll ask, I handed it back up one. Thank you. And because this is how things that we do here at CareAcademy for our customers. It doesn't really matter whether however you do it. Make sure that you're providing your caregivers with pathways to add skills, to push their capabilities, and really to advance their learnings, because that is how people report staying fulfilled in their career. If they're constantly learning, they see how they're achieving their own personal mission and their personal values, and having a meaningful pathway to continue to push their learning agenda is one of the key great ways to do that. So make this really a rewarding career opportunity for everyone is a great way forward. All right, I think we're back on track. So, so let's, in our last couple minutes here, let's really work on focusing on how do we make this actionable. So, presenting here, so 3 things that you can do tomorrow to get started and again, pulling forward candidates from other parts of the market. So again, I probably can't stress this enough. You've got to get creative. COVID is up under the rules of how we work. It's also up under the rules of how we recruit. We have to think way outside the box. Make sure you're really looking in those unusual places, in addition to the quote unquote usual. So the unemployment offices may seem obvious, but it's also incredibly important. Like, unemployment agencies exist to help people find another job. And if that means retraining and reskilling, then they're going to be very interested in what you're doing there. It's most often easily done at the very local level. So in the area that you operate, talking to the cities and counties that you operate in, and really work on partnering with those folks at that level. Go find other companies who have let people go. Unfortunately, we all know of companies who had to let people go in the area that we operated in, and so those can be a good way. If you know that there's maybe a large restaurant group in your area, or a multi-chain restaurant who is going to unfortunately have to either close their doors or at least furlough folks, find out what they're doing to support their displaced workers. Create an engaging conversation, either directly with the ownership or management, or target them directly in your advertising. Hyper-local advertising can really be valuable here, because you can attach to, laid off from XYZ, we're retraining and we're reskilling. Don't overlook college career centers. Like, I think a lot of people feel like college career centers are focused on helping current students get jobs, but they're actually also there for alumni. Alumni will go back, particularly recent alumni will go back to their colleges for support in job placement when they've been displaced. So it's a little untapped place to go. In all of these cases, though, please be sure to actively tout your willingness to retrain and reskill, because you want to give people the confidence that if they come in and start working with you, that they're going to get the training that they need to be successful. The second thing you can do is really expand the reach of your job posting. So it's great if you post on Indeed or another job board the traditional way. You're going to source more traditional candidates or people who are actively exploring. You need to figure out a way to get to the people who aren't actively looking for caregiving jobs. So, some things you can do. We did a webinar with Indeed not that long ago, and they talked about claiming your company page. So this is a page where you can build out your profile. You can target specific keywords in that profile and also in your ads and the way Indeed works to broaden your reach beyond traditional candidates. Local training centers is a great way, either with a local vocational school or a local community college, or just training organizations. Also, we've heard about some assisted living communities having grant opportunities for continuing education. All great places to go look for for candidates who may not be in the traditional sphere. Yeah, we're all virtual now. So your recruiting and job fairs, have to move online as well. But there's the online job fair, but there's also the online event. What are you doing to build your profile in the community as a hirer or an employer of choice? Like how are you engaging with your constituents in non-traditional ways? Have a coffee break, or have a lunch and learn, or something to give people exposure to your business. The good news is, because it's all virtual, it really reduces the risk in your cost. It creates a really nice opportunity to create engagement and identify as someone who's hiring in your community. And I suppose I should make a plug. Make sure you're using tools like Hireology to really managing your candidates and get them into your process. It's a great way to make sure that you're being efficient with your funnel. And lastly here, the third thing I would suggest is really focus in on differentiating yourself from other agencies. So you remember, as mentioned earlier, that Amazon and others is your competition. And so it's one thing to differentiate yourself from the agency down the street. It's quite another to differentiate yourself from some a large global behemoth like that, who obviously has different access to resources. So, but think long and hard about what incentives, what career pathways, what other resources are you providing to your workers, and really tout them in your recruiting process. Often folks think about them as two separate things. They think about the recruiting, great, I got them on board, and then somebody else has to deal with making sure that they're successful. But if all those things that you're doing to retain your caregivers are going to be valuable in your recruiting process. We're not going to just have you jump in off the deep end, Mr. and Mrs. Candidate. We're going to give you the tools, the training, skills, et cetera, so that you can be successful. Give them comfort that you're going to support them as they go forward. And that's a really key thing to be thinking about, particularly now. What are the health and wellness resources that you're making available to your caregivers and to your employees to make sure that they can be successful? And also, these are incredibly difficult times. All of those resources that you're providing to your employees, again, can't stress it enough. Tout those, make those available, expose those in your recruiting process, so that candidates really understand the value that you provide them as an employee. So I'm sure we could go on for days. This gave you 3 ideas here. We probably can come up with 5 or 6 more, maybe 20 more, but I am mindful of the clock. So, I did want to say again just thank you for the opportunity to join you today. We do have more resources available on our website. This is a very quick summary of a lot of different things that we're doing and others in the industry are doing. So you can visit us at www.careacademy.com. You can reach me. I'm Aaron. I'm adunn@careacademy.com. Feel free to drop me a line. I would love to learn more about what you're doing. Some of the best ideas that we presented here are really collated from people just like you. And so I'd love to continue to collect those, share them with the broader group. I think you'll get a lot of value from seeing some of those ideas. So feel free to drop me an email. I would love to hear from you. And with that, again, thank you so much. And let me hand it back to Chris.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron, for that wonderful presentation. You touched on a lot of really good points. I think what really resonated with me was really rethinking work across all industries. Making sure that you have an open mind to new ways of working and opening doors to new professionals that, are not accustomed or have never been within healthcare specifically. So pivoting what we call our normal way of doing things, by creating a new strategy for growth, by reaching those non-traditional candidates and focusing on how to keep them once we do have them on board. I mean, obviously we spend a lot of resources and time and money to get them here, coming up with good ways to actually keep them long term. The last really, pertinent highlight that I, really liked that tied into some of the content that we had from yesterday was a discussion about the retention levers. Offering other options to candidates outside of things like just straight pay dollar for dollar, but having things like continuous training, career pathing or those upskill pathways, as you mentioned, flexible hours and bonuses, really making sure that your employees are really truly feeling fulfilled with their work, but also have those pathways for career progression. So once again, thank you so much for your time today, Aaron, and for sharing these insights, with our audience. I know we got a lot out of it and definitely really appreciate your time. I think right now what we're going to do is go ahead and just take a quick 2-minute break. We got about 1:31 Central, so we'll call it 1:33 Central. We'll go ahead and start back on again. So go ahead and take a quick bio break, and then we'll be back here in just 2 minutes. Thank you. All right, we're going to give it here another 10 to 15 seconds to let everyone get back in, and then we'll go ahead and jump in and get started. All righty. Well, welcome back, everyone. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our fireside chat. I'd like to first introduce Adam Robinson. Adam Robinson is the co-founder and CEO of Hireology, where he's on a mission to help businesses succeed by building exceptional teams and workplace culture. He's a nationally recognized keynote speaker, author of The Best Team Wins, build your business through predictive hiring, and a columnist for Inc. magazine. Adam is a 3-time finalist for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year for 2017, 2018, and 2019, and named a top 25 HR industry game changer by Workforce magazine. Under his leadership, Hireology was ranked number 94 on the Inc. 500 list of America's fastest growing private companies in 2016 and has been on the Inc. 5000 list each of the last 5 years. Hireology has twice been recognized nationally as a top 50 best workplace by Inc. magazine and a top company culture by Entrepreneur magazine. Adam graduated from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and received his MBA from DePaul University. He's a member of YPO and the Economic Club of Chicago and lives with his family in Chicago, Illinois. Next, we have Helen Arioson. She told me to do the wave when I said that to make sure I got that all correct. She's the CEO and co-founder of CareAcademy. Helen had a career in driving outcomes for adult learners and finding meaningful ways for them to engage in learning. CareAcademy was born out of her own firsthand knowledge and experience as a caregiver, uniting her education passion with a desire to better serve the elder community. She has worked with Teach for America, Boston Public Schools, and Pearson Education, as well as a number of companies focused on caregiving issues. Helen holds a BA from the University of Notre Dame in politics and Arabic studies, and a Master of Education and Education Policy and Management from Harvard University. So welcome, Helen and Adam. We'll go ahead and dive right in. Yesterday, I want to start off, I went pretty easy on those panelists, but today I'm going to change things up for you two. The gloves are coming off, and I want to make sure that, I'm coming at you with some hard-hitting questions. So really, to start things off and kick things off here, what do you think the 2020 catchphrase should be?
I'll go first because I've been uttering it in every single audience that I've been in, but never waste a good crisis. That was the mantra from March, and I think going into next year in 2021, there's a lot to learn and a lot of opportunity coming out of the crisis that we're in.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the coaching I've been giving, certainly our team, as you know, internally, but to our customers, is this too shall pass. We're in unprecedented times. Everybody's had a very challenging year, both personally and in many cases professionally. But I think, as Helen has said, it's an opportunity to really look at your business and accelerate adoption of tools, technology, and process that are going to help you compete in this market in the future, because 2021, by all accounts, is shaping up to be a very, very different year. I think increasingly the view is a positive one for this industry. So we will get through it. It's been a heck of a year, and let's stay focused on what we can control and not the things that we can't.
Yeah, no, I love those answers. Those are great. I think if I had a catchphrase, it would be, can you hear me, or can't hear you, you're on mute. So, but in all seriousness, I wanted to, break the ice a little bit and kick things off with a lighthearted question, but I do want to make sure that we are getting to some relevant questions and content, which is obviously why our audience is here today. So, 2020 has undeniably been so challenging for everyone, especially in the healthcare industry, and we're continuing to deal with a lot of uncertainty, as we wind down this year. So as we optimistically hope and look forward to hopefully a vaccine in 2020, what are some of the ways that you two see things returning to normal, as in, kind of pre-pandemic time frame? And then what do you see as kind of like a permanent change, and how, as we adjust to what we call, I guess, the new normal from here?
I mean, Chris, from my perspective, I think we likely won't be returning to what the old normal was for a multitude of reasons, particularly due to COVID. But the new normal for this industry is the reliance, I believe, on digital tools to get more work done. It's a migration away from paper forms and the number of physical forms people need to touch, and the business we need to do in person, and smarter tools that let systems take on much of the administrative or busy work to free our staffs up to do more strategic projects, and while also helping caregivers and RNs better focus on delivering quality care. So it's the automation of the things that we need to do to stay in business, the administrative work, and it's a freeing up, I hope, of time to do things that help us deliver care. And so now is that great opportunity to look at how systems work together, and to look at realizing some new efficiencies that are possible now. And as things go more digital, I think, thinking about the market, applicants more than ever are now mobile first or mobile only. And our processes can support meeting them where they are as they evaluate either entering this industry or staying in this industry.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Helen, what do you got for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been telling our team that there's such an indelible touch coming out of this pandemic in our processes, our systems, our technologies. Everyone is reacting. There is no old normal or old way of doing things to go back to. I think not only in this generation, but multiple generations are always impacted by a very specific moment in time. So I see this pandemic as definitely a whole paradigm shift for the work that we do for years to come. And I think that, and I heard this wonderfully put with one of our customers the other day, everyone senses that this is a very specific moment for home care. I think 2021 will be a continuation of that, and looking at ways in which we're expanding how healthcare is done in community, in home. And from CareAcademy's perspective, we know that's going to be a real moment for us to shine as a people-centric aspect of how healthcare will be done, right? And so I'm actually prognosticating and just kind of projecting to the future that we go away from talking about the labor and go into talking about home care workers and home care work as talent driven, because essentially we are going to be in a place where we have to create someone who is responsive to a number of different healthcare realities away from the hospital and in the home. So that is something that I'm foreseeing and foretelling, and to Adam's astute point, having the tools and the resources to really back up people and the processes that back up people and talent management within this new growth area of healthcare.
Excellent. No, I love that. And I thought those were some really good and salient points across that. So as we kind of look at, staffing and employment as a whole, what does today's healthcare applicant actually look like? And then, how has that changed as a response to COVID-19?
I think this is a great opportunity to attract those into the industry who may have had an interest in providing care, who were impacted by the months of shutdowns, to not only find work, but also provide for those in need. And so while you won't necessarily be able to hire someone with zero experience and expect them to be fully trained right away, this, I think, is a generational opportunity to invite people into our business and to show them what it means to be a caregiver. It is a fantastic career. Some get into this business because, they, by necessity, they have a family member they have to care for and they find that they like doing work. Others may be looking for that career change, and now is really our opportunity as an industry to showcase what we are all about. And for long-term care facilities, that are looking for great facilities, resources, administrative staff, and other various perhaps non-care roles, applicants who may not have considered the healthcare industry may be able to transfer their experience and make an impact directly. So I think agencies and businesses have an opportunity to reach out into these other markets and attract a type of applicant that previously has been unavailable to them.
Absolutely. I definitely concur for many reasons. And I think it's also, we have to sort of reshape the scope of long-term care as, sort of let's build it and they will come. But we are actually, and Aaron, my SVP of Marketing, alluded to this earlier in our conversation. We have to sort of build from a premise and create systems and opportunities for folks to find out more about what this means and what working in long-term care, working in the home really means, right? The other piece that I will say too is because I think sometimes when we think about work, we sometimes tend to be very dichotomous. But what we reinforce, and one of the things that Aaron mentioned earlier, is the fact that you have a lot of folks who are coming out of service work. It shouldn't be lost upon everyone today and our audience that we are essentially a services-based, industry, right? And so folks having that background, folks having sort of that repertoire already have a lot of what it takes. So we really advocate for the fact that you're not teaching total new skills, but folks can actually project in their experiences, their talents, the former jobs that they held prior to the pandemic, into work, into home care. And so that is something that we really encourage from the perspective of when we're working with our customers and throughout the industry, of pairing the idea that this is an industry that welcomes you because you already have the talents that we're seeking. And so learning how to really be of that perspective when we're talking to Adam's point, a wide array of folks who might be interested or coming into our industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You come up with some really good points. You know, obviously, it seems like every sector outside of healthcare has been experiencing really massive layoffs. Obviously, unemployment rate was, you know, up over or nearly up to 20% earlier this year. And, you know, healthcare kind of seems to have that one pipeline where it's always trying to get folks in here. So as we kind of focus on, you know, both like the traditional and non-traditional talent, you know, what do caregivers specifically need to know, or what will be the skills for the future? Helen, why don't we start with you?
A couple things, absolutely. One, that we are going to be an industry that is predicated on not just teaching you from a one and done perspective, but continuous learning is actually paramount to being a successful direct care worker, to being a successful, talented person, is being just a receiver of education throughout your whole life cycle, right? So we talked about this as a retention mechanism, but in terms of health success and outcomes for everyone involved, whether it's you're talking about agencies or direct care workers or patients, it's absolutely necessary to be of that mindset and for employers to be able to provide that sort of ongoing learning. I want the new catchphrase of how we talk about direct care workers to be actually direct care talent, because I think that we have to also look at ways of attracting people and saying, we're going to build up your talent, you know, not just for the work in the moment, but throughout whatever home care and whatever healthcare looks like into the future. And so looking for ways to do that, obviously, you know, with pay and compensation, but other opportunities as well, right? Like what are opportunities, you know, in terms of long-term learning and, you know, creating those opportunities within your home care agency can we really sort of look at? So I think that folks, you know, I really think actually that in some ways we can, this is our moment to catch up, because in technology, in all kinds of different work environments, you already see this paradigm. So I'm super excited about the fact that this is our moment within, you know, healthcare, within long-term care to really catch up and really exceed in order to bring people who are looking for not just work that I can do in the midst of this pandemic, but what comes next for me as someone who's talented and wants to grow. We can start positioning in that way.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you for that. So Adam, a little twist on that same kind of question, you know, as we kind of adjust what caregivers need to know and what skills they need, how do business owners communicate that to their candidates and their job applicants as they're going through and actually looking for these positions?
Well, so from a Hireology angle, what we're seeing is healthcare organizations, whether it's home care, home health care, long-term care, across all segments, there's really a common theme here in helping hiring managers get more done with less. So we've seen this by having our customers, you know, coming to us and asking if we're able to bring integrations to the way they roster their people, right? And so there's an understanding that if the member of our team is the most critical asset that we have, we're putting them in front of our customers, they really are our business. How do we build systems and process around that individual to reduce their need to jump through the hoops that we've created, or perhaps that our state regulatory agency has created to get them on that roster, and also ease the burden internally on the administrative side for trying to build and maintain these rosters. And so, you know, if you're using a ClearCare, a Matrix Care, an Access Care, and a Laya Care, these other, you know, these systems that you're using to build your business, the answer is absolutely, it's time to think about making sure that the data flows seamlessly, because not only does it impact you internally, but if you're thinking about that person on your roster and the kind of work they need to do to stay or be employed, making it easier and building process around the people will drive satisfaction and retention. And ultimately that leads to a better business for us.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, thank you for that. And you kind of touched on a couple of points that I wanted to highlight, as we focus on, a number of different, changes that have happened this year. Obviously the seismic shift that we had from, being in an office or, actually having to come in daily, to more remote work, and kind of having more dependence on digital tools in our, not only our personal, but our professional lives as well. So, how are we seeing, some of these healthcare organizations, further embracing technology, not only to connect with their staff, but as well as patients, and then helping everyone work smarter. You want to continue on that one, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make the point again here. The way that most businesses, not just our industry, the way most businesses built their HR and administrative process was to solve their own internal issues. And there's a reformulation going on now, and we see it in the demand for things like CareAcademy or Hireology. The workforce needs solutions that are built for them, right? So HR tools are moving from an introspective point of view to really an externally facing value delivery system. So how can we do human capital in a way that's tailored to the member of our team, not necessarily to the administrative needs of our organization? I think that's a massive paradigm shift. It used to be, let's check the boxes on our end first and make it usable for people. And now I think it's really call it the consumerization of HR technology. It's really a consumer experience for logging hours, for picking up shifts, for picking up training, for being employed, right? These tools are moving to digital, and that really demands of us as service providers. It's a mandate to build things that human beings actually want to use and interact with. And when we do that, we make it easier to work for us, and we make it a more enjoyable experience. And those employers who take this mindset and approach, I believe, are the ones that will benefit and set themselves apart as an employer in the market.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Helen, what do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and ditto to a lot of the other points too. I think as we look ahead to 2021, a lot of this, I have two words really, and it's about capacity building, right? How do we capacity build for the moment? And I think a lot of the focus on compliance and getting folks, up to speed in the moment has been really the focus of the home care industry and the long-term care industry. But increasingly, we've talked about 2020 being, the moment for sort of technology. So you've heard a lot about telemedicine, you've seen sort of an expansion of that, but we really need to optimization for humans. And so how do we capacity build insofar as, the talent that we have, the talent that we're trying to bring into the industry, and really expand and think about the opportunities that are coming up. I always maintain with my exec team when we're going into sort of thinking about the next year that, I say half the jobs that we generally know of in the world, have not been created or even thought of yet, right? And I think the same is true also for long-term care. We're seeing so many shifts in the way that healthcare is done that will increasingly, because of this pandemic, come to us, right? And so how do we prepare for that? And the best way to do that is looking at processes, looking at systems and technology adoption, but then also looking forward to ways in which we get people acclimated, get people sort of forward-looking into those opportunities coming down the pipe.
Oh, excellent. And you touched on, something with, telehealth and these types of technologies. Is there anything that you're really most excited about that has kind of come about as part of the pandemic and kind of forcing folks to adopt some of these new technologies?
Yeah, I think it's the paradigm of how do we now focus as an industry on what the needs are of the end recipient of care. Healthcare has been really driven by systems for a really long time. So this is the system and everyone react to it. But increasingly, I think that because of the final frontier of healthcare being sort of, a place where we need to drive a lot of solutions, where you're going to increasingly see is a focus on what does the individual need? What does the consumer of healthcare need? We know, we've done survey after survey after survey, there's surveys throughout our industry that consumers, the people who are receiving care, want care, one, to be able to choose where they get care, and two, want to be able to increasingly receive that also in their home, right? And so the technology is coalescing around that. And so if we play that forward, how do we see things changing after we get a vaccine? And a vaccine is, imminent, hopefully, and folks are already getting it throughout the world. And knock on wood, we start here soon in the US. But I don't think we're going away from the consumer drive around healthcare. How do we get people prepared for that future?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you see or have you kind of come across any organizations that you saw as kind of like leading the way for that, especially within home care and as we look to move ahead?
I think that two of those organizations are right here on this call. Shameless plug for Hireology as well as CareAcademy. But there are a number of companies, I think they're trends that we're watching, if anything, overall. I'm sure Adam is also, reading a lot of the same reports and seeing some of the things that I'm seeing. But I think telemedicine and the advent of telemedicine and the sort of push of technology and telemedicine is an interesting thing to watch. I'm also looking at, I have a number of friends who have companies that are centered around kind of pushing up the value proposition of the individual. So someone who's a paramedic now is serving multiple functions in terms of administering a vaccine as a paramedic, right? And so I look at the advent of those companies, and what seems to be happening is, again, you're moving healthcare into a home or into a preferable care setting, and then also expanding the capacity of the individual, right? So how do we reshape and remake for instance, we think about this at CareAcademy, a home health aide who also has some experience around social work, who also has some level of being able to, triage around social determinants, right? And so those are, the pandemic is the opening salvo towards this movement of creating someone who's a multi-hyphenate, multifunctional person. That's something that, CareAcademy is creating in terms of the capacity to be able to do that for individuals. And I completely agree in terms of, the way Hireology and the work that you all are doing in terms of getting folks oriented around that in their processes, right, from a technology perspective, definitely.
Yeah, and even tying into what Aaron had said a little bit earlier for his presentation, making sure that we have a lot of these kind of like career pathing or upscaling opportunities for folks, and really getting them involved so that way they do have that sense of ownership and making sure that they're fulfilled with what they're doing. So I really, really like those points that you made there. So I kind of want to change gears a little bit here for a moment. So kind of take on more of like a macro view of what's happening within home care as well as the home health spaces. So obviously with the recent election and the kind of forthcoming administration change, what do you think that folks on this call should have on their radar, both legislatively as well as at the federal level, kind of things that you may see coming down the pipeline? We'll start with Helen.
Yeah, a couple things, and things that we've been watching as well. The current administration, sort of preemptively has come up with sort of a multi-plan, multi-phase awareness of the needs, again, of the end recipient of care. We know that, the great vast majority of the fastest growing part of the population are aging adults. And so in response to that, the Biden administration, came up with, or the transition team came up with a plan, a multi-tier plan in terms of how to address long-term care and accessibility. And so I think it is incumbent on us as an industry to really watch and see and advocate for parts of that plan. And I really suggest that folks, if you're not familiar with the Biden plan around sort of long-term care and aging, to take a look at those and see ways in which we can reflexively or from an advocacy standpoint, push for certain parts of that, because I think that there are really some interesting opportunities that may arise from that perspective. But being proactive about what's going to happen come January, from our perspective, I think that's going to be a huge bet.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So, kind of continuing on down that same vein, how will home care, have to change really to garner support? Obviously, as we're looking for things for reimbursement, and that always being an ever-changing part of how we do business, but then also looking at new funding models as well as opportunities. Can you give us some more information on that?
Amen. You've asked something that is keeping me up at night, and something that we're internally already reacting to. I think we're going to come out of this moment. We were already there, but now more than ever, looking at the data and the outcomes. One of the things that I think is surprising, and I raise my hand in terms of taking some responsibility in all of this too, is we are not generative and really sort of looking at macro level data in terms of outcomes within our industry, right? And so how do we really shape data and drive data and show efficacy and prove out efficacy of home care? I think we talk a lot in broad strokes about efficacy and the preference of, there's the same sort of data and statistics that we've been really talking about for the last 4 or 5, 10 years. But there's such a strong movement towards being very data driven and being able to talk about that in all different stakeholders, whether it is the payers and reimbursement, whether it's CMS, whether it is, as I mentioned earlier, we're going towards a consumer health driven model. So how do we talk to the end recipients of care and their families and the American public and generally say that what we're doing here is great, and here's the data and the receipts that back that up. So it's this coalescing between what we do and say and the outcomes of that, and making that writ large, whether it's on the Hill or to the American public, which we should be better about doing, I think, in the future.
Excellent. I got one more question for you, Helen. I'm going to kick it over to Adam. But so what do you hope to see for franchisees as well as direct care workers, kind of coming out of this new change?
Yeah, I think from, and maybe I'm very hopeful about this, I think from advocacy and really good data and data that shows that long-term care, home care works. It's been put to the test by virtue of this pandemic. I want us to take charge of being able to, and I say us, not just CareAcademy or Hireology, but all of us to really take that on as a mandate that 2020 was about reacting to and being of the moment of a crisis, but 2021 should be the year of data and outcomes, showing our effectiveness for all of the work that everyone on this call is really staked in, right? And so I want us to sort of, I'm a huge fan of Oprah, and every year she comes up with sort of a theme for the year. I think 2021 should be, we've done the work in 2020, here's how we move forward in our efficacy in 2021.
Excellent. No, thank you so much for that. That's really enlightening, and obviously some of the more meaty topics that we want to make sure that we cover, because we do get quite a few questions from that. So changing gears again, Adam, this is for you. So yesterday you really talked about the applicant economy, and the importance of having high quality candidate experience from basically application to hire and beyond. So obviously, especially in today's employment market, how do you see that experience evolving in 2021? As we kind of look forward to the future.
Well, a couple of things here. Just maybe at the government view first, just to echo what Helen was saying. I think, in fact, talking to a board member of one of the largest home health care organizations in California earlier today, there is a view that is emerging and I think pervasive that the incoming administration will be a real net positive to the industry for lots of different reasons. But there is an optimism both from the demand side that will accelerate, but also from the government side, regulatory bodies that the next 4 years will, will be maybe more friendly government relationship between, caregiver organizations and the agencies that regulate them. I think, the point of view that I have here, and where I hope advocacy goes, is making it easier for people to get into this business. And so, Helen's comments really focused on, coordination of, payments and outcomes and how the industry is paid. I think there are some real bottlenecks that make it a lot harder for owners to stay staffed. Biggest example is just live scan requirements. I mean, if you're trying to get live scan data seamlessly integrated into your hiring platform, there are like 6 entities in the United States that have access to that data, and it's almost impossible to get that data integrated. It is the most manual, time-consuming, frustrating process where you're just waiting, and it's triple entry and it's hard. And so agency after agency has identified the live scan database being off on an island, and just the bottleneck that causes is being, almost the single most impactful impediment, to getting people in faster. Those kinds of things, I think that as an industry, if the federal government and state governments want more caregiving to happen, and they want to smooth this transition to care and home, they need to make it easier for people to get on the roster. And what I would like to see is some federal help with making it more clear as to how that can and should happen, and just increasing the number of providers that can help agencies get people staffed and meet the requirements that the government has set out, if that makes sense. I think that's advocacy that needs to happen, that we just don't hear a lot about. From the applicant side, what's interesting is that, what I thought was the advent of FaceTime and iPads when they came out was going to usher in a period of more remote interviewing, right? We'd be able to do recorded interviews and remote interviews and just get more volume of applicants processed. And I guess here I am 10 years later to say, it's just not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because the technology is limiting. It's going to happen because applicants don't want to do it. Like, I can show you data that says that having asynchronous, not synchronous, but asynchronous video interviewing cripples your applicant conversion rate. And I was predicting the exact opposite thing 10 years ago. People want a human experience. So synchronous, which is what we're doing now, it's live, fantastic. Asynchronous, which is I log in and answer off a script and it's recorded, is just, it hurts your conversion rate. Fast forward to today, a year of Zoom meetings, I think, has accelerated the adoption of synchronous video-based conversation by years. And so I think that's here to stay. And so what I think is coming on the technology side are systems that allow us to communicate in real time, more effectively at scale with more applicants, so that we can do our jobs more effectively in building our rosters. That's what I think we're going to see a lot more of in the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Those are really good insights. So for Helen, kind of beyond some of the obvious benefits of training, regarding, just skills and knowledge on performing the job, how does CareAcademy, how will CareAcademy help healthcare organizations land high quality talent in 2020?
Yes, I think it is really, a lot of our focus next year will be around how we help home care, long-term care organizations really talk into the industry. And it actually goes to my comments earlier, right, about this sort of new muscle memory that we've got to create in terms of talking to folks who are not within our industry, but outside of the walls, and sort of bring people in and convert them, and do that with different stakeholders too. And so my belief is that, we've got to present, and one of a really great example of how we've done this on our end at CareAcademy is, we've always realized that it's incumbent upon home care agencies to really be able to, talk about their services and talk about excellence, and looking and creating systems of excellence. And so we created a marketing toolkit, essentially, right? And so for us, it's sort of building the marketing toolkit to be able to talk with different stakeholders, whether it's an end recipient of care, whether it's a referral partner, or a Medicare Advantage plan, and provide them with kind of the methodology of being able to do that. How do you talk with these different stakeholders, and talk with also applicants as well, right? How do you build an incentive program? So we've often talked about and talked to people creating their own incentive programs. How do we templatize incentive programs that folks can really utilize to attract folks? So it's that sort of stack of, if you come to my agency or my home health provider as an employer, these are the things that we're going to build in. And then it's incumbent on us as a technology platform to really plug into those and help deliver the opportunities to attract applicants. So whether it is also offering badges or a level of competencies to, and showing that and displaying that, and your ability to do that as an employer is also going to be really important.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for those insights. We appreciate that. So just got one more question for you both here. So we'll kind of, wrap things up a little bit, but as we're looking, kind of towards helping to continue to support our healthcare professionals, from frontline workers to, our own internal, administrators and, folks within our offices, what are, in ways that we really didn't think was possible before, what do you look forward to within 2021? So trying to end on a good positive note here, what are you both the kind of positive on and high on that you think is going to be a good change as we look forward to 2021? Adam, why don't we start with you?
Sure. First, I hope we have mass availability of a vaccine. I'm looking forward to that. We saw doses shipping this week. I think we've got another 6 months before it hits the population in a way that gives families real comfort that the world is a safe place again. But more than that, I think it will provide some much needed rest for all of our dedicated healthcare professionals who have taken the brunt of the work here through this thing. And so I'm hopeful that we also see a renewed interest in the healthcare space as applicants who may not have considered careers in healthcare, really hear this call that we need their help in this country right now. Where I see opportunity is for organizations across the country to focus on building their brand and welcoming these new applicants so they can see themselves in the role as demand continues to grow. Investing in this industry's brand as an employer and in a specific agency's brand in their local markets, becoming more digital and mobile first, I think will help this industry immensely. And I want to see capacity building. I really look forward to that next year. This industry is really focused on the optimization of technology and the optimization of systems. And now I think it's time to help the workforce in this industry optimize their own capacity to deliver care. I really think we are in the first inning of a really fun, exciting period for the care industry. And I really look forward to families and caregivers feeling truly safe again in this environment. That's what I am most looking forward to.
Absolutely. How about you, Helen?
And another reframe, maybe a second, runner-up for my earlier comment around never waste a good crisis, would be that, I think long-term care and great home care is great health care. Healthcare generally tends to be behind the curve in terms of adoption of systems and processes, right? And so, you all may be seeing applicants who show up, at your door who are coming from services-based industries where, a lot of what we're doing has been sort of readily adopted. And I think this moment is going to be, we're going to look back at this moment in 2020 as being this moment of like leveling up. I look forward to long-term care, of home care, home health, really leading the charge in many ways of adoption and showing healthcare how it's done, and being able to rapidly bring people into and skill people up in order to meet the demand and the needs that we're seeing born out of this moment. So I'm super excited about, long-term care and home care coming from this moment where, we sort of been in the background to really being a leader in terms of, technology adoption, processes, and capacity building, definitely in the years ahead.
Absolutely. No, I love the optimism from you both and the positivity. It's been a very, very tough year all around, but we're looking forward to 2021. So that's all that I had for the two of you. Just wanted to give you both, maybe 15, 20 seconds, quick plugs on anything that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up here. Helen, why don't we start with you?
Absolutely. We are rapidly working over the next 2-3 weeks. I have some really great announcements in terms of doing some of the things that we've spoken about. CareAcademy is committed to being a leading provider of education and upskilling. And to that point that I made earlier around data collection, really leading the charge in terms of the efficacy of home care and home health. We're really excited for that. So stay tuned. If you'd like to know more, I am Helen at careacademy.com.
Perfect. Adam, up to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Helen, it was great to sit with you here today. This was a lot of fun, and thanks to everyone in the audience for being here today. If staffing is a challenge, and I say that tongue in cheek, because of course it is. If you're looking for different ways to increase your effectiveness in the market, Hireology would love to talk to you. And so, either directly or in partnership with one of the providers with whom we're working, we're excited to help you be more effective and build the roster you need to deliver care and build your business. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, I would like to once again thank you both, Helen and Adam, for participating today, sharing your insights and your expertise with us. I know our audience obviously found it very enlightening. I certainly did. Definitely appreciate you both taking time out of your days to sit with us. So also wanted to thank everyone here on the call for participating with Hireology's first Healthcare Beat series. Once again, also appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy day to join us. Hope that you took something away from these sessions over the past few days that you can start implementing into your own organizations. But once again, thank you so much for participating. We look forward to seeing you out there. Thank you, Helen and Adam, and best of luck to everyone in 2021.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.